It's Fred and Sheila McCoy.
Hi.
Hatfield McCoy Museum in Liberty, Kentucky. FredMcCoy.com or HatfieldsMcCoysMuseum.com for all the information. Today is going to be another segment of Keeping It Real. Of course, by now everybody knows Keeping It Real is where we have seen something, read something, somebody told us something, we've watched something on YouTube or TikTok or something that's incorrect, and we've set out to correct it, or at least tell the other side or show the evidence that we have that what was said or shown was incorrect. Okay. And it's up to the viewer or the reader or whoever to choose your poison. If you want to continue to believe what we're trying to correct, that's perfectly up to you. But at least the other side will be out there, so you'll know that there was another side, that what you saw or read or seen wasn't the only story or information that's put out there on it. This board here, Sheila's going to...
I'll take a picture of it and then I'll kind of divide it up into little smaller pictures so you can look at each part, and I'll put it at the end of the video.
This was a YouTube video that we run across, and it's called The Hatfields and McCoys, a documentary. And it's only like 5 minutes long, 5 minutes and 3 seconds long. And we just went through it, watched the video, and there's some discrepancies, several discrepancies, and we're just going to point them out. Who is the historian or whatever he is over in West Virginia that's involved with promoting the Hatfields over there. And like I tell everybody, he's done an exceptional job. Too bad we didn't have him for Kentucky, representing the Kentucky McCoys and the Kentucky Hatfields as well, preacher aunts and all those over here, because Bill hasn't always been correct on his information that he's put out on the West Virginia Hatfields and devil aunts, but it sure has been flattering to them, and I think that's what his goal was, is to make them seem and be bigger than life, and that they could do no wrong. And that's where some of these stories that we're trying to correct over the years has come from, is Bill Richardson himself. Now, can you fault Bill for doing what Bill's paid to do? I mean, that's his job, and he's good at it. So the sad thing is about it is that he's considered to be a historian, a Hatfield McCoy historian, and you can't be a historian and a marketer at the same time, because you're going to fail one or the other. And sometimes people take everything you say for the truth because you're considered a historian. Let's get our starts out by opening a statement. Images of violent backwoodsmen, mountain men roaring across the newspaper headlines of America. Then they show this picture of this house here. Mm-hmm. Show the house on the West Virginia side of the river. It's Devil Ance's house. Now, Sheila and I actually have this picture in our book, our big 900-page book, which, by the way, is not available right now.
No. Because
of new information and because of Randy and Civil War records. And we're going to update our book before we've sold out the last edition, and we're going to update it. So it'll be sometime in late summer or fall before we get another one out. But this is actually in our first edition. We put this picture in there years ago because it's in the Wilmington Daily News. Mm-hmm. And it was showing this house right here and this house right here. And she'll take a close-up of this, and I'll just read it to you. Tug River home of Devil Anse Hatfield, leader of his clan in the feud with the McCoys during the 1880s and 90s, was this log structure which stood on the right fork of Beach Creek. He and his family are said to have occupied the structure, no longer standing until after the turn of the century, when he moved permanently to Island Creek in Logan County. The person in the photo are not identified, but Estill and Lawrence Hatfield, great nephews of Devil Anse say they are probably members of the Mayhorn family, since the feudus was there. Now, this is identified as Devil Anse Hatfield's home in West Virginia. And this Estill Hatfield, he says that he don't know who these people are out here, but they are probably members of the Mayhorn family. They may be members of the Abraham Lincoln's family. Probably. I mean, probably, maybe, could be. Those are words that should never be put into a historical photo or for seriousness, for fact, because we don't know who those people are. Now, there's the house. It's described in West Virginia as Devil Anse Hatfield's house.
Right.
And probably the Mayhorns, which was friends with Devil Anse at the time. So let's leave it at that. Now let's go down here to this bottom one, also in a book.
Okay.
James Madison Thornbury home at Phelps, Kentucky, built in 1844. And we got no doubt the same cabin in both photos, identified as the James Thornbury cabin of Phelps, Kentucky in one photo, and Devil Anse is in the other.
Yeah.
Now, again, this is history. Which one is it? Which one? Is it Devil Anse's home in West Virginia? Is it the Thornbury house in Phelps, Kentucky? You know, they didn't move cabins back then. They didn't move houses back in the 1800s. So it's either in West Virginia or it's either in Kentucky. We don't know. We can't tell you that. We can't tell you. So we're not going to say, well, it was probably Abraham Lincoln's. We're not going to tell you that. We don't know. So the best thing you can do when you don't know is just say, we don't know.
There's the same picture, but of two different families claiming this the same house.
Yeah, it's the same people. The same people are standing down here.
Right, I noticed that.
That are standing up here. It's exactly the same picture.
The road.
Up here they're identified as that they probably could be Mayhorns.
Okay.
Nobody put down here who they probably are. Well, I imagine they're saying James Mayhorn of Phelps, Kentucky. I imagine they're acting like they're saying that's the Mayhorn, the
Thornsbury.
Madison, James Madison Thornbury family, since that's their home. Maybe minute to some people, to us, before you put that in a YouTube video and call it a documentary. See, where people make a mistake in life, in these Hatfield McCoy books, or probably anything, I'm leery of everything anymore since we're so familiar with the Hatfields and McCoys, but when you see something labeled documentary, the truth, Altina Waller, the real story, be leery. Be leery. Nobody knows the true story. Nobody knows the real story. Nobody knows everything about it to write a documentary. It's just, there's too many ifs, ands, and buts in the Hatfield McCoy feud. Nobody knows it all.
Right.
You can't say that everything you say or write or something is the truth. Now, unlike Sheila and I, the videos that we do, if we're making a video about it, we try our best. I mean, and if we're wrong, we ask you to tell us. You'll have to tell us in an email or tell us in a phone conversation or a text. Yeah. Because we got the comments cut off, because we don't want to hear opinions. We've heard opinions all of our lives. Like I said, when we first started making these videos, the reason we cut the comments off is because people would write. We would say, here's Devil Anse's Civil War record. He deserted. Somebody would write and say, well, I read a book where Devil Anse was a captain and he served for 3 years. That's reading a book, and that's an opinion. Show us Civil War records. Moving on.
Yep. You're doing good.
Huh?
You're doing good.
Well, a gentleman on this video, on this documentary, it didn't say who he was.
Right.
It didn't have his name, but no doubt he's read Altina Waller's book or promoting her book, because he says, or Tom Dotson's. Tom Dotson says the same thing, which now Tom Dotson got a lot of his book from Altina Waller, which says she got a lot of her book from Otis Rice. But this gentleman here on the video says a Hatfield McCoy feud wasn't a feud. It was simply a conflict. Now, Tom Dodson, we're going to go over his book.
And another story,
In
another video.
Story. Yeah, it'll be a entire segment. But let's just go to the dictionary. Let's go to Webster. Conflict, a noun, a person, a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one. A serious disagreement or argument.
Okay.
That's a conflict.
Okay.
Now let's look up feud.
Okay.
A long-lasting quarrel. A long-lasting quarrel, especially a long-lasting conflict between families or clans, usually having acts of violence and revenge. Feud is a verb. We don't think it really matters to those killed during the feud. They're still dead. The gentleman says Hatfield McCoy conflict had much more to do with political and economical changes that were occurring in Appalachia at the time than it had to do with the folk culture of the region or any of the stories associated with it. Laughable. Let's look up story. Noun. An account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. That's a story. So he's saying it was economic and political. Let's look at some of the stories listed below, but remember, these are just stories, or so they say. Civil War, Devil Anse Hatfield deserts. Others were killed or went POW in his unit. Asa Harmon McCoy was assassinated. McCoy pigs stolen. The McCoy pig trial. Paris and Sam McCoy ambushed. Attempted assassination by Bill Staten. And they killed Bill Staten. 3 McCoy boys assassinated. And they had killed Ellis and Hatfield. Jeff McCoy assassinated swimming across the Tug River. Randall McCoy attempted assassination at his cabin. You know, Altina Waller and different people says that there was nothing happened in 5 years. Absolutely nothing went on for 5 years during the feud, but they failed to mention where somebody shot at Randall McCoy's cabin while he was standing in a door facing one day, and there was a bullet hole in the frame of the log cabin. They failed to mention where he and Calvin was supposed to be on their way to Pikeville the next morning to check on the charges for Devil Anse and the Hatfields, and they were ambushed, but they got 2 Scots instead and shot one of them in the leg and shot both their horses or something. Don't quote me on that. The facts are in our book, but I don't have it in front of me, so it's been a while since I looked at it. So, but they shot they thought it was Devil Anse and Calvin, and they shot 2 other ones.
Thought it was Randall and Calvin.
What'd I say?
Devil Anse.
Thank you, babe.
You're welcome.
Ain't y'all glad she's here to keep me straight? They thought it was Randall and Calvin, and they shot the wrong people. So there was things that happened during those 5 years. The cabin massacre, burning the cabin. Cabin massacre. 2 more children of Randall and Sarah's are killed. Cabin massacre. Sarah McCoy's beat within an inch of her life. You know, they say Randall McCoy died when he fell in a fire. He never regained consciousness. He lived for another week or so. But is that what happened? Is that what happened? You know, we're talking hypotheticals here. Let's throw a hypothetical out there. Devil Anse and the Desperados or the Bushwhackers, the Renegades, and Jim Vance, they were known for burning cabins during the Civil War, after the Civil War, on the McCoys. That's why Asa Harmon McCoy was hiding up in the cave. He didn't want them coming there and burning his cabin down and killing his family looking for him. But that was their MO. They used fire. They burnt people. They burnt cabins. Isn't it ironic that Randall McCoy died of serious burns that he sustained in a fire when he was the only one there? But the story was that old Randall fell in that fire. Well, we'll never know that one. There's no truth to be told. I don't know the truth. Sheila doesn't know it.
No,
and the people that spread the story in the beginning that says he fell into a fire don't know the truth. Was he pushed into the fire? Was the house set on fire? We'll never know the truth. We'll know that story because that's what's been told all the years. True statement when introducing the two feud leaders. Now, this documentary, so-called documentary, is Anderson Hatfield, a man born to star in his own drama. Anyone who has ever studied the feud, and especially Devil Anse, would agree wholeheartedly with this statement. It doesn't require a degree in psychology to see Devil Anse Hatfield was a narcissist and had a Napoleon or little man syndrome. He loved the self-gratifying attention and didn't care about how he got it, even at the cost of killing other people. Devil Anse even went on a, what's that called, that show that he done that time, where he was going to, yeah, he was going to go reenact the feud.
Yeah.
And Von Verveer or whatever it's called, and then he couldn't do it. So, but he loved the pictures, he loved the newspapers, he loved telling the stories, he loved the attention that he got, and the attention that he got was from doing some of the most barbaric things that a person could do. And then he got the nickname for being called a hillbilly. Said it was more critical than the mafia, more or less. Look at him standing there with two bandanas on, bandoliers, shotguns. That's the image that they display. The documentary says in this documentary, Devil Anse, was tall and imposing. And this is about Devil Anse Hatfield. Documentary. Devil Anse was tall and imposing. However, every single record that has ever existed has Devil Anse standing at a mere 5'6" tall. But we guess it could have been considered imposing if he had been standing to a 3-foot midget. That's the only way Devil Anse is going to be ever, in truthfulness, be considered to be imposing on another human being, is that tall and imposing if the other human being is a child or a midget. He's 5'6" tall. That's undisputable. You can tell these stories all day long, but it's not the truth. The documentary goes on to say, with looks that earned him the nickname of Devil Anse. The nickname Devil Anse had nothing to do with his looks. The nickname Devil Anse came about as a child when his mother once told him that he was meaner than the devil. And he liked that nickname. And that she gave it to him because he was mischievous. He was always into something. And he liked that name and it stuck. The so-called documentary goes on to say, Hatfield built the most successful timber business in the Tug Valley. McCoy was not as fortunate and bristled for years as his competitor thrived. Now this is a documentary. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong in I should have looked up the definition of a documentary so we could have went over that, but I've always thought that a documentary was truthful. We thought, maybe I'm wrong in my thinking, but says that his competitor, that he thrived. Really? This, my friends, is what you call written into or spoken into history. It doesn't get any clearer than this. Altina Waller first printed Randall McCoy and his father had timber business and didn't do as well as Devil Anse's business. But yet Altina Waller, and we're going to discuss her. We've got several boards on Altina. She said that Randall and his father was in timber business, and she'll sit there and laugh on the History Channel. But they didn't do as good as Devil Anse. That's not true. Show us proof. Why didn't she put the proof in her book? Why didn't she show us a census maybe? A census where it said something other than farmer? For a timberman, it would a timber businessman might have showed Randall and his dad timber. Altina wrote it into history, and over the years, many so-called authors and historians, even documentaries like this on YouTube, video repeat what she said in her 1988 book titled Feud. Professor of stories, maybe, but not history. And I'm talking about Altina Waller. Now, this is we got about half of it here.
Yeah.
We're going to cut this video here. If you want to watch the other half, she'll have part 2, and you can watch it later. See you next time.
All right. See you on the next one. Thanks for watching.